Hey, what's going on?
Hey everybody, Chris Slayer, Bob Miller, and we're going to do a little. We decided to do a little quick pick because we ran across the story. Actually, Chris ran across the story and dropped it, and it was pretty profound. I mean, again, this is Chris. I know that basically we're doing these for ourselves because I went and looked at the views on the videos,
Oh,
and we are completely entertaining ourselves doing
oh,
this, but
oh,
but that's okay. I don't
yeah,
care, right? Because the things that we're talking about should be viewed by more than just me and you. So it's up to them to go a little bit deeper, right?
that's exactly right. Yeah, we're quick picks. Yeah, we're not here to provide some kind of college credit for
No, I
people on
mean,
these
yeah,
things.
we these are things that Chris and I know are notable out of all of the. I mean, because there's a lot of noise out there about articles, and so we're just trying to pick the ones that we think are actually ones that are really you should put an eyeball on and think about. And there may not even be solutions for them. Most of the ones that we're looking at, including the one that we're looking at today, we're going to talk about it, but there ain't no damn immediate solution. There is not, hey, all I got to do is go reconfigure this one thing and I'm good to go. It's not going to be that way. So we're just trying to put these out here so that you can see the ones that we think are there are signs of the future that we're going to be living in. So we suggest you at least look at them, digest what's really going on. So
Yeah, I was thinking about this one too because I was looking at some posts and stuff, and I kind of see people out there in the security space, and especially you look at people in the enterprise space, and you have very specialized cybersecurity professionals in the enterprise space, right? I saw somebody that was talking about something very specific to encryption key, and I looked at what her role was and everything, and that's all she deals with, right? I mean,
yeah,
that's her whole life. But for us, especially in this small to medium size space, small space especially, we don't have that luxury. And so
yeah.
some of these things, if they're just not the, I don't know, I'll use the term sexy topic, people might be picking up on them. And I think this is another example
Yeah,
as
well,
well about
and
that.
to your point, this problem applies. So it's one thing to be the enterprise space, right? You got specialized people, but
Yeah,
it's a certain size. There's a certain number of enterprises that meet that definition.
exactly right.
There are millions of small and medium businesses that fit into this bucket. So something that's big in the enterprise space certainly is nothing to sneeze at. It's a big event. But even something medium or small in the small to medium business space is massive just because of the amount of impact that it could possibly have from an economic standpoint. And by the way, this one pisses me off because I'm a programmer, right?
That's
So
right.
this one really pisses me off because now I got to start worrying about this shit. Like I didn't have enough to worry about. Now I got to worry about this because I've had interactive development environments literally my entire life. From puberty on, I have had IDEs. I got 3 IDEs on my machine right now that
Yeah.
I use on a daily basis.
And
And
I'm not a developer, so I just chuckle about it, right? Because it's
yeah,
just kind of
yeah.
like,
Well, this is like getting kicked in the nuts a little bit, really, to be
yeah,
honest with
no.
you. Yeah.
No, it's
So
true. It's like
yeah,
one of those things. It's like you're the best way for me to give an analogy about this is like if you got a toolbox out in the garage and that's been your trusty toolbox for 20 years, and all of a sudden one day you open it up and it infects you with some kind of virus that
that's right.
you can't
Gives you
cure.
COVID.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah,
It gives you tool herpes or something.
yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly
exactly.
right. So that's exactly what it is. Tool herpes, toolbox herpes, TB
Toolbox
herpes.
herpes. That's what
Yeah,
it is.
yeah.
So this
No, yeah.
this particular exploit. So I guess we better get into what we're talking about before people just go, hey, they've lost their mind. So
That's right.
this one's actually titled IDEsaster. So what it is, and I'll drop all the stuff, links. You'll be able to go look at it yourself. Bottom line is, and we touched on this a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about the GitHub exploit that took place, and the fact that the bad guys were using again IDEs to be able to run automations for a truffle hog to run around and grab credentials and secrets and all that sort of stuff. So that was just a couple of weeks ago. All right. Well, since then, since people started paying attention a little bit back then because bad things were happening, now we're starting to see a whole nother layer of issues with our interactive development environments. And Chris, the bottom line is that when it used to be when you had an IDE, you'd write software in the IDE, you do code maintenance, code preservation, all of the things that you need code, everything you needed to do, you did it all in that IDE. Then in the end, you produced the golden master and it rolled out. And what's happened is now we have most of our IDEs have integrations with AI. AI large language models and tools. Now they're getting integrated into the development environment for obvious reasons, right? It's a lot more efficient.
And
It's
IDEs have always had integration capabilities, right? So even when
always,
you need to do static code analysis, you would integrate it with something
yeah,
or whatever, or
yeah,
different repositories and stuff.
right.
So yeah, you're right. So this isn't like
No,
something a new. The integration is not the new piece; it's what it's integrating with is kind
yeah.
of the new
Yeah,
piece. Yeah.
that plugin architecture has always been there for IDs, for
Mhm.
profiling or code profiling, like you said, any of those things, right? So it's really wasn't that big a deal for them to be able to add the capability of being, integrated either tightly or loosely. Just depends on the IDE how far you want to do it. You can do it as a plugin, but there are a lot of IDs that make it native now, and it's actually tightly integrated with the environment again to give you lots of flexibility and from an efficiency standpoint. But the thing that's happening now is that these things are susceptible to things like prompt injection, because these IDs now are susceptible to prompt injection. So why is that a big deal? Because we've talked about that before. Well, the problem is these damn IDEs live behind the wire, and not and usually development teams have access to a lot more than your average user, and in some cases even more than your administrators have access to, right?
Mm.
So that anything that can run an automation that deep into an organization is an actual serious threat. And that's what's happening. That's what we're starting to see.
Yeah, and it's. I mean, and some of the examples are the ability to go in and change configurations, and that's scary stuff, right? So,
Yeah.
I think the thing, what's interesting about IDs, and again, I'm not a developer, but I've been on the assessment side and looking at people's secure development life cycles and all those types of things. And a lot of the big hump was just getting a lot of developers to even use an IDE. And and we was like, yeah, it's a big deal. So you could do code analysis and do all that kind of stuff. Make sure you know how you're taking code and you're having somebody else promote it into production and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of the eyes are on production, and when you're exactly right. You're talking about going into the IDE here and just being able to manipulate it. And it's kind of one of those things that's people aren't paying attention to be honest with you, because number one, that's really never been a threat
Hmm.
vector to,
Right.
the risk has been really low. But this whole changes things. And like this AI thing, it's not like something that people are just sitting on and waiting for other people to try it out before they try it out. People
Right.
are jumping on it right away. So, and they're
Yeah.
probably getting a lot of pressure to jump on it right away for productivity reasons. So,
Yep.
and then also people are feeling, hey, I need to do it because I'm feeling the pressure that I have to do it, or my career is going to pass me by.
Yeah.
I'm going to be left in the dust.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things going on here. But yeah, I mean the and to jump back to what you said at the beginning is that, and notice that we're not naming out a specific IDE. This is
Yes.
like IDEs
Yes.
and
Across the board.
across the board. And I know one of the things that you'll produce documentation wise, one of the things is this is not like a this isn't like a breach. This isn't like one of these things what has
That's
a
right.
nice title to. This is a kind of a very high risk across the board to a a a platform or
That's
a
correct.
series of platforms. You know what I mean? And
That's
and
right.
there's no update or patch or anything of that nature or anything you can necessarily do right away
Right.
to like permanently fix this. And you can kind of go into what kind of
Yeah.
people are going to have to do when
Yeah,
they
yeah. Well,
want.
I mean, it's an open platform, right? I mean, development
Yep.
tools have always been open platforms, and the cloud-based ones are the same thing. They're just, they're cloud-based. So, and it's uniform. It's kind of a uniform deal. And I mean, just to let people understand, I don't know how many of them remember SolarWinds, right? But SolarWinds, it wasn't even, you could think about it in terms of what we're talking about today, but that was like 3 or 4 years ago when that happened. So the bad guys got into the development. They got inside of the wire by doing some
Hmm.
credentials. They got in with credentials. Then they duplicated the certificate server, elevated the certificate server up to the level of the admin certificate server, and that way they could go wherever they wanted to. But what did they do? They went down into the development chain and were able to put themselves into the compilation make file so that when the production people did a compilation and built the golden master, it inhaled their code into the process and compiled it into the overall process and then stamped it with the certificate of the author. So it was, it's stamped and released all in a justified way. So we can now call that the hard way. They went
Oh yeah.
about that the hard way. This, it takes a fraction of the amount of effort to do it in this particular environment, based on the fact that you can more or less grab JSON files or whatever you want from the IDEs, change things, inject things, and then have that all be part of the environment. At least used to, when we were programmers, we knew everything that was going into a compilation that was going to come out on the backside. And that's not the case anymore with these AI agents, especially with them being able to inject things artificially, through this prompt injection. Then we're going to have to get a lot more, we're going to have to be a lot more careful about what's being inhaled and compiled. We're not going to be quite as laissez-faire about it. We're going to have to actually pay a lot more attention as developers about what the hell's going on. And to your point, Chris, this is across the board in tools. We're just going to have to pay a lot more attention to what it is that we're doing and what's going into the compilation. That's the main thing. So these exploits are going to make it a lot easier for people to hijack what's going on, which means in some cases we need to have the ability to maybe turn that off or filter it. So, I mean, because now this is out in the open and everybody knows about it, so they're going to have to start building some controls in for us as developers to turn on and off, and configure. But that ain't going to happen fast, right? I mean,
And you're gonna have to, and I think what's what the most interesting thing is you have to train the developers and
yes,
like monitor
right,
them doing that. You know what I
yeah,
mean? So that's
yeah,
a
yeah,
that you're gonna upset their routine, which
yeah.
again, I'm not a developer, but I can speak
Not the
to
most
hey,
trainable group in the world. If
not the most trained, yeah, and if you disrupt their routine, that can
oh,
be pretty painful.
yeah, 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 for
It
everybody,
can,
because
yeah, for
yeah, we are
everybody.
we are whiny babies if it doesn't go exactly like we want. So
And we know developers, I mean, in today's world, people are spread out, but developers are even more so.
yeah, yeah,
Developers are the probably the least likely role to be working 8 to 5.
right,
So that when you're training developers, hey, you got a challenge on your hands here,
yeah,
but you got to do it quickly. And I think it's one of those things to explain the risks to them so they kind
yeah,
of understand. Instead of just telling them, hey, this is what you need to do, explain why will
yeah.
go a long way.
Well, and by the way, this is the worst time of year for something like this to pop up, right?
No, I mean, yeah, we were talking about that earlier before we jumped on here. It's like,
Yeah,
hey, it's holiday time, right? So how many people are actually either A, at work, B, even if they're at work, are they paying attention? And is this something you're going to have to rinse and repeat
yeah.
after everybody comes back?
Well, and guess what? Guess which group of people are always piddling around and doing stuff even during the holidays? It's
Yeah,
the
yeah,
programmers, because it's
yeah,
quiet. There's nobody bugging the hell out of you, so I'm
exactly
just
right.
saying you're active at that point. I mean, they don't really go to sleep on that stuff, right? So as long as they get their Xbox or whatever, their new game for Christmas, and they'll eat up 3 or 4 days doing that. But otherwise, they're going to be heads down during the holidays. So yeah, it's a bad time. Some things that you can do. All right. So, I mean, because that's important too. What are some of the stuff that you can do? Look, you just need to take an inventory of every development tool you got and make sure you understand what artificial intelligence capabilities it has. I think that's the first thing, because a lot of people may not even be using it in a lot of your tools, but it's still sitting in those tools because maybe you favor one or two. Like we're as bad as anybody else as developers. We collect tools if we think they're going to help us, and a lot of those have been augmented with AI, and we may or may not even be using them, or we may use them casually every now and then, and maybe not even something that has to do with AI. But you're going to have to watch them all now, because if they have the capability of being able to do some of this, remote automation, you're just going to have to pay attention to what it is that you're doing with them. Next big thing is you got to make sure all of your patches. There's going to be a lot of patches coming out,
Hmm.
over the next few weeks. So you're just going to have to pay attention to that. Make sure that you're updating. Pay attention to this. Just because people might not be talking about it, because Chris and I found out the hard way. We were talking about that whole GitHub exploit with npm, and we put it out there 2 or 3 times, and not really a whole lot of engagement for something that I think was way more critical than was
Yeah, I
being
think
given the
I saw
airtime.
another article about that thing. Amazon's one that kind of pushed that out there, and
Yeah.
I, you'd think with something with that type of name behind it would get more traction as well, but
Yeah.
not. I
Well,
think this is similar. Yeah.
right. Well, we're doing the research on that article that you're talking about right there. I
Hmm.
mean, it's another one we're probably going to do, because I think, again, it reinforces exactly what the hell we're talking about. This is not by accident that all of this is sort of coming to light around the same time frame.
And I think too, one thing we don't want to miss is say like if you're paying attention to us, you're saying, well, I don't have developers. Why do I care? Well, you have companies that you're getting some type of code from at some point, whether it's off the
Yeah.
shelf, custom off the shelf, or whatever that, or
Mhm.
just custom code itself. This is that third and fourth party risk that we talk about, and this
Yeah.
is exactly the same thing here. I mean, this is the stuff that again you kind of took for granted for a while, but this is the real deal here. You got to know what's under the hood. You don't need to be an expert, but you should be asking those questions from a risk management perspective, especially if what you're using is critical or touching confidential data or anything of that nature. I mean, it's important. I know
Well,
it's probably again not a sexy thing that you wake up in the morning ready to go tackle it at work if you don't deal with development, but it is a real risk management problem that you have on your hands here.
yeah, I mean, if you don't use software, you're good to go. You
Yeah,
know,
that's right. Yeah.
if your business exists without software, then yeah, by all means, move on.
And
No, I'm
we
just
envy you if you're able to make a living and enjoy your life. I envy you for that.
yeah,
So.
100%. But I,
and
you
you're
know, that
and you're not listening to us anyway.
yeah,
So
that's right. You're not listening to this crazy shit anyway. So that's
yeah,
absolutely true. So look, the other, another element is you got to make sure you got a human in the loop on, on what's going on in these development processes. It can't be a lights out, just hit the button and walk away. You're going to have to be more careful than that. You got to make sure that you limit your use to certain projects. You got to really tighten up. You're going to have to tighten up on really critical software that supports artificial hearts, or whether it's your payment processor or whatever the hell it is. You're gonna have to segment out those projects, and you're going to have to segment and limit the ability for certain people to be able to access and work inside of certain projects a little bit more. I know that's a pain in the ass. Don't start. I don't want to hear the whining. I know the whining has already started, but
yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry. That's the universe we're going to be living in. So, and you're just going
the,
to
the irony is AI is creating more work for you to do.
yeah, right, right, right,
But
right,
I mean,
exactly.
that's the reality of it. I mean, that's the
That
thing
is the
about
reality of
this
it.
thing. I mean, I think for the next, 12 to 18 months, we're going to learn these things pretty quickly. I mean, we're going to
Yeah,
learn, number one, we're going to learn how productive AI really is. Number two, we're going to learn, uh, like the financial benefits. Is there going to be one, or are we going to have a bust at some,
right.
at some scale? And number three, like, what are the real risks? Because I mean, there might be some experts out there, we're not, that can articulate all the risks that AI is bringing to the table. But, I saw an article the other day that was talking about how people were able to bypass some of these LLM guardrails by putting stuff in the forms of poems.
Yeah,
So the
that's
LLMs
right.
were, yeah, yeah. So they were able to get
Right.
stuff that normally the LLMs would deny. Uh, and now they're able to get it through. And so that we're just going to keep learning those lessons. And the thing is, it's going to be a fire hose set on extremely super high pressure.
Right.
And just like in this case, what we're talking about here, you've got to be able to respond and respond quickly, understand the risk, understand how you're going to do things. If you're going to have to do things in a different process, a different methodology,
Yeah,
and just like I think you may have mentioned it, human beings. I mean, you cannot. Hey, listen, your job's not being replaced. You just might have to shift a little bit,
that's right.
but humans have to be involved in this because they're really
Yeah.
the true toll gate.
Yeah. Well, and it needs to go beyond human in the loop. It needs to be human at the helm, which is different. That means that humans are actually more in charge of the flow of what goes on, not just in the loop, seeing things passively. That's not going to be good enough. That's just another way of getting exploited. So that look, the only things you can do at this point, since we don't have any touch points into LLMs to be able to do a lot of monitoring. The main thing you're going to be able to do is like with every AI exploit that we've talked about before, is you're going to have to monitor traffic types, and you're going to have to baseline monitoring of certain types of traffic. HTTP, IDE processes. Now you're going to have to monitor those things, get requests from any kind of unfamiliar domains. Those are all things that you're going to have to focus. You're going to have to apply those filters and policies against the development environments that we're using. And the other thing is that one thing I do know is those of us that program that are not as cybersecurity side of the fence, they don't pay attention to these advisories a lot. So you really need to notify all your programmers that this vulnerability actually exists. That's a big part of it. Just make sure that they understand it and know what's going on. It touches everything, Chris. It's like you got to make sure MCP configurations, because now we got MCPs in this, and
Yes, exactly
um,
right.
you got to rotate credentials. You can't just leave the same credentials forever, between these links. You're gonna have to do. You're gonna. I mean, it's just gonna take some work. normal work that we non-developers have had to do for a while now. So
Yeah, and you have to have the audit trails, right? You have to have the
yep,
logging.
that's
So if
right.
something does go on, or somebody maybe makes an assertion or accusation that something's going on, you have the logs to go back and review and provide that. I mean, if you're not paying attention to logging
Right.
today, you're already behind the eight
Yeah,
ball. So you got to get on top of that.
you're
It's
going to get your
super
ass
important.
handed to you. You're going to get your ass
Yeah,
handed
for
to you. That's
sure,
what's going to
for
happen.
sure.
So I'm going to
Yeah,
tell you something else, and get ready because you're all going to vomit into your microphones. But I don't give a shit. You need to hear this. You need to have change control on
hmm
your ID development tools. In other words, when you decide to put a new tool in or you decide to make an update to a major tool, they come out with a new feature. You're not just going to be able to punch the monkey button and say, yeah, give me everything. You're going to have to think about it. I know, again, I can hear the railing and whining from here, but I'm telling you, the ramifications of it are just too great. They're just too great. You're going to have to pay attention to this. So it's not going to be the old days when we could just grip it and riff it, right? Which is sort of what we did in the past. So
yeah,
again,
that's exactly right.
yeah.
Yeah,
And I think,
are you
go
gonna
ahead.
trust that new drug dealer on the corner right away?
Right.
No.
Or you can ask questions.
You're
Yeah,
gonna ask what?
you got to ask questions, right? So
Yeah.
that's, I think those are the major things we'll be talking. I think this could be the single biggest impact over the next year. These are the back office tools that build everything that we work on. So this is not like an exploit on a particular vector on a particular platform for a particular type of modality of that platform. It's
Exactly.
not that. This is the actual thing. This is the infrastructure that builds the infrastructure.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
So
exactly right.
it's the
So
reason we were yelling about the NPM stuff. Y'all go back and read that damn article because I'm telling you
I
right
think
now, you know, it's
I think
serious.
maybe I think maybe 10 years from now somebody's gonna go back and go, hey, those guys were right. We should have paid attention to them.
Yeah, they were there's old they were old, man, but they
Yeah.
were talking about the
Yeah,
right stuff. So yeah,
that's right. Yeah, if
yeah,
we just listened to those
yeah.
guys.
All right. Well,
All
that's
right.
enough beating a dead horse, but we're just
That's right.
saying this is actually a big deal. So please read. I'll have the files out there. You can go do your own research. The URLs that we use to source all of this will be there. Go do your own looking, man. You don't have to trust us. Go do your own looking. But if you come up with something new, by all means, share it with us and everyone else. By all means, we're great at that. So,
That's right. All
well, all
right.
right.
Well, thanks. Good
Thanks,
stuff.
everybody. See you next
All
time.
right. Bye.